I was sitting in my car in a parking lot, and my bank account I made six figures, but I didn't have enough gas money to get home. I am William, and I have a good job and professional degree, yet I was looking for loose change under the floor mats just to buy a gallon of milk. The world thinks if you have a good job in a place like Silicon Valley or London, you've made it. But the truth is a dirty secret that nobody wants to admit at dinner parties. I was working 60 hours a week just to hand 60% of my take-home pay to a landlord who didn't even know my name. The shame hit me the hardest when my daughter asked, "Dad, why we couldn't have a backyard like the kids on TV?" And I had to tell her that our backyard was a shared hallway in a building that smelled like old trash. I was feeling like a total failure. I was doing everything right according to the rules, but I was still drowning in a sea of rising rent and hidden fees. Every month felt like a boxing match where the referee was paid to watch me lose. But then I saw a single line on my lease agreement that made my blood run cold. It wasn't just the rent, it was the convenience fees, the utility pass-throughs, and the inflation-indexed spikes that were designed to keep me on a treadmill. I started looking at my friends, people making $150,000 a year, and realized they were all doing the same survival hacks just to stay afloat. Some were living with 3 roommates in their 30s. Others were moving back in with their parents just to avoid the debt trap of high-interest credit cards. We were the working wealthy on paper, but we were the working poor in reality. I saw people in Silicon Valley working high-tech jobs but sleeping in converted vans because even a studio apartment required a credit score of 800 and a deposit that looked like a down payment on a house. It's like the system created a game where the goalposts move 10 feet back every time you kick the ball. I was using my overdraft protection just to cover the security deposit on a smaller, worse place. It's a cycle that makes you feel small, like you're a child asking for permission to exist in your own city. But then I discovered a loophole in the way the banks look at rental history that changed everything. I spent 3 weeks in the basement of a local library, digging through the Fair Housing Act and looking for the hidden rules that the big property groups use to squeeze us dry. I found out that the system isn't broken. It's working exactly how it was built to work. It's built to favor the institutional landlord over the family. I learned about tenant rights hacks that can freeze rent hikes if the building isn't up to code. And I started looking into rent-to-own contracts that weren't predatory scams. I discovered that you can actually negotiate your lease by offering a long-term stay in exchange for a capped rate, bypassing the market value trap. I stopped looking at my housing as a service and started looking at it as a contract negotiation. I learned that the bank will count consistent rental payments toward a mortgage qualification if you use the right reporting tools, which is a hidden hack most people never hear about. I started documenting every single repair, every late trash pickup, and every broken light bulb to build a case for a lower rate. But then I received a notice in the mail that felt like a punch to the gut. It was a no-fault eviction notice because the owner wanted to flip the building into luxury condos. I had 2 choices. I could crumble and move even further away from my job, or I could use the relocation assistance laws to force a settlement. I chose to fight. It wasn't a miracle. It was a long, slow, painful grind. I spent my weekends reading legal forums instead of playing with my kids. I learned how to use debt validation to stop the predatory collection agencies from ruining my credit while I moved. I started a housing fund in a high-yield savings account that stayed untouched, no matter how hungry I got. I realized that the middle class is being erased by design, and the only way out is to stop playing their game by their rules. I started looking for off-market rentals through local community boards instead of the big apps that use algorithms to jack up prices. I found a small place owned by a person, not a corporation, and I used my rental resume to prove I was a better bet than someone with a higher salary but more debt. Progress was slow, and there were nights I whimpered so my kids wouldn't hear me. But my debt-to-income ratio started to shift. I was no longer a slave that was stealing my future. I learned that financial sovereignty isn't about how much you make, it's about how much you keep. I stopped trying to look successful for people I didn't even like. The system wants you to stay in the expensive areas because that's where they can tax your time and your soul. I moved 40 minutes away, started a remote work side hustle, and finally saw my savings account grow for the first time in 5 years. The Silicon Valley dream is often a nightmare wrapped in a nice package. The data says the economy's great, but the lived reality is a struggle for anyone who doesn't own the land they stand on. We are living in a time where a good job isn't enough anymore. You have to be a student of the system just to survive it. The hidden rules are there, but they won't show them to you on a silver platter. You have to go find them. What is the one housing cost or debt you feel will follow you forever? Drop it in the comments, because we can't fix the system until we start talking about the cracks.